The tibialis anterior has recently become a very popular muscle people strengthen to fix knee pain, and they're doing this commonly through an exercise known as the tib raise. Now, while these can certainly be helpful, unfortunately, this seems to be all people are doing for this important muscle. And only doing these exercises may not be enough to get the tibialis anterior to functionally integrate into how we actually walk or run. Now, the tibialis anterior is a fascinating muscle because it does two different things. Because it attaches at the outside of our tibia bone and runs down underneath our foot onto what we call the medial cuneiform bone, it has a role in creating both dorsiflexion, but also it helps do something else that's very important. As we move into dorsiflexion, the foot should move into what we call pronation, meaning that the foot arch should lower closer to the ground. However, the tibialis anterior does create that dorsiflexion, but because it is also a muscle that can lift the foot arch, at least at the distal attachment, it actually has a role in decelerating pronation. In simple terms, it helps get the knee and shin over the foot while making sure that we're not overly pronating or dumping the foot arch down into the ground. So the point is if you don't have genuine dorsiflexion or ankle mobility with the healthy amount of pronation of the foot, your tibialis anterior won't be able to work in the first place properly, no matter how strong it is. So we do want to have a strong tib anterior, but we also want to have the capacity to access that genuine ankle mobility for it to be used. Here's a really good way I like to train that. This is my favorite way to restore dorsiflexion while still getting a healthy but not excessive amount of pronation of the foot. What we're gonna need in an ideal scenario is a wedge, just like this, supporting the ball of our foot and our first two toes. If you don't have a wedge, you could take a couple of paper towels and fold them up about this thick and slide them underneath that same area. It's certainly not perfect, but it can be better than nothing. I also like to have something I can hold on to, whether that's a door frame or a rack or a desk, whatever just allows me to stay stable. I'm gonna take a slight step back with this leg, making sure that I can lock out my knee easily on this side so my knee starts behind my heel. I'm gonna keep my pelvis facing straight ahead, then I'm gonna unlock my knee, very slightly turn my pelvis away from this side as I push my knee over my big toe, staying relatively tall within my posture. And then I'm going to square my hips back up as I bring my knee behind my ankle. What this wedge is doing is creating an environment that allows me to dissociate my rear foot and forefoot properly as it should under good genuine pronation and dorsiflexion mechanics. It also prevents me from excessively collapsing my foot in as my knee goes over my toe. The main thing to look out for here is that your weight is evenly distributed through this foot at all times. And of the weight that's on this foot, you should feel at least half your body weight on that heel. You should never lose that even as your knee goes over the toe.